Without a doubt, not ideal situation for you. But are we just gonna jump into it? Like, what this Georgia Tennessee thing? I know you guys got a big recruit this past week, and you should, without a doubt, be excited about Mike Matthews, 5-star at Lilburn, Georgia.
Not just Lilburn, the alma mater, Parkview High School. Um, there is a pipeline here. So I guess we can do this, and then we'll get into how many days until college football and our ACC preview as we get closer and closer to the upcoming 2023 college football season. But no, so here's the deal. Friend of the pod, Graham Coffee, and some other podcasters and Georgia fans ended up having a whole conversation that I poked my head into a little bit. And Graham's my guy, and he means well. And there is now something that I think there's a disconnect. And I'm probably going to write about this week because I have a lot of thoughts on this particular matter. So, Tennessee brings in a 5-star wide receiver in Mike Matthews, the highest rated wide receiver Tennessee's ever brought in. He is, by all accounts, going to be just an absolute player. Like, he floats like Michael Jordan, was something in the scouting reports, which is cool. Probably going to
get Michael Jordan comparisons.
Hey, the way he floats. So he's got good hang time. So shout out to Mike Matthews. But Nico Iamaleava, right? 5-star quarterback coming in last year. You get another top 10 quarterback in Jake Merklinger this cycle. Braylon Staley is in the boat, 4-star out of South Carolina receiver. And then you also have Amari Jefferson, 4-star wide receiver out of Chattanooga, who will be making a decision between Georgia, or between technically Georgia, but Georgia's not in it. Alabama and Tennessee next week, I believe. And then you have Ryan Wingo, who will be making a decision out of Missouri, the 5-star wide receiver at the end of December. And it looks like that one's probably down to Tennessee, Mizzou, and Texas. Seems like the big three still chasing them. So very real chance that Tennessee ends up with 3 basic 4 or 5-star receivers in this class. You bring in a big 4-star Nathan Leacock. The point being, the reason I'm mentioning all these skill position guys, and this was something that Graham was talking about on the Twitter thread that we were going back and forth on, and respectfully, because yeah, you can have respectful discourse and people can disagree respectfully on where things are going. And one of the things that I've noticed that Georgia fans are missing primarily with what Tennessee is doing. So now there is this expectation, and this kind of rubs me the wrong way, where Tennessee has put a plethora of dudes in the NFL, specifically the wide receiver position, over the last 3 years. And that is a nice thing. Georgia fans should understand. Like, it's nice to put dudes in the NFL because you can get guys like Williams Nwaneri, potentially the 5-star defensive tackle, who might end up just picking Georgia because he's just seen how many dudes have gone to the league without just coming in late in the process.
Don't try to downplay it because we're a factory of producing NFL D linemen.
No, what I'm saying is what I'm saying is that's all it need. Sometimes because you can just say you're probably going to go to the league if you go here. Like, you're probably going to be a 1st-round pick based on this kind of track record. Like, guys have seen Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and so many dudes over the last. It's Trayvon a testament Walker. To what they have done. So what I am saying is it kind of sells itself. You're not really recruiting there. That's not really recruiting. That's not that hard. That's just you. Hey, if you've watched the draft the last couple of years,
hey, it's a loaded position group though to have to come into.
Sure, but if you're a 5-star, you think that you're gonna be able to make it work and get all of that. You shouldn't be worried about that if you're a 5-star kid coming into Georgia. That being said, look, one of the things that people are pointing out, and one of the things that they were talking about, was that Tennessee is recruiting a lot of playmaker, and they're spending a lot of their big time recruits on wide receivers when Josh Heupel schemes guys open better potentially than anybody else in the country. And it's like, do you really need to use your resources there if you're going to catch the Georges of the world? And it's like, okay, you're getting 5, great, you got a 5-star quarterback. Can the offense be better with Nico than what we just saw this past year? Can it be better than the number 1 scoring offense? And what does that actually do to get 5-star guys in those particular areas where you're already scheming guys open and doing a lot more with less? And part of it too was like, hey, they're not winning in the trenches in terms of recruiting at the moment. Still a lot to be done. They bring in 5-star or 4-star Devin Hobbs last year. They have a lot of 4-stars in Joshua Josephs, James Pierce, Chindavian Bradley. They're in it deep with 5-star defensive tackle Kamarion Franklin right now. That could end up being a Tennessee pull. There are still we still have several months here. Bring in a 4-star. You beat out Alabama for Arian Carter, who I think is going to be a stud linebacker in this group. You've recruited pretty well at the corner spot. We'll see what Kai Bates, the 4-star out of Florida, does this week. Actually, it's down to Tennessee and LSU. That'd be a humongous corner get for the Vols. But I think what's happening now, because Tennessee is ahead of schedule, and because now Georgia is seeing that, like, oh, if Tennessee is the closest heir to catching us, it's like, okay, let's kind of pick at the scab of Tennessee and be like, hey, let's settle down. Here's your, you can't do this. Where, if you're going to catch Georgia, why are you using your recruiting capital on receiver in those areas? Why aren't you? It's like they're taking the big swings. Like Tennessee is swinging at Cam Franklin, Cam Fountain, Williams Winery. Like they are taking the big swings at those positions. They're taking big swings at 5-star offensive linemen. They're taking those big swings. They brought in a 4-star offensive guard in William Satterwhite, and they took big swings at Jaden Riddell at tight end. They've taken. Like, it's not as
but
though...
it's not that no one thinks Tennessee is recruiting those guys, but it's the point is Georgia fans are not going to be truly worried about Tennessee until they start landing those guys. Like, obviously,
but then it's like that's not a conversation that Tennessee fans are even saying, though. And I think that's what Georgia fans are missing. It's like Tennessee fans are just happy. Like, it's one of those, like, Georgia fans need to actually have a conversation with where Tennessee fans are, because Tennessee fans are just like, do you know what's awesome? Kicking the shit out of the majority of the teams we play right now, because that's going to continue. Like, that is a really,
to be fair, Georgia fans aren't even talking about Tennessee until they start talking about Georgia, and it's like, okay, now get back in your place now.
Tennessee fans weren't talking about it. They just saw, Georgia fans saw the 5-star receiver, and that's how this conversation saw. It's like they saw these guys now picking Tennessee, and it's like, great, like, we're not worried about Tennessee. Yeah, you can get all the 5-star receivers you want. Like, we're still going to win in the trenches, this, that, and the other. But like, Tennessee, this is what they can do right now. The biggest selling point for Heupel, it's like he can't turn away. Like, he is a QB whisperer. If you come into this scheme, you are going to put up numbers. You're going to get drafted. You're going to be like Joe Milton. If he just has an okay year, he's a second-round pick. So it's like, we also don't know. Like, Josh Heupel has never had the kind of talent. If Tennessee closes where it looks like they might close as a top 10 class again this year, and you're looking at potentially another top 10 class, then you're in the blue chip ratio. You'll be in the blue chip ratio after this year anyway. Like, then you're at a point where we've never seen Josh Heupel's offense and Josh Heupel's entire system with a bunch of dudes on both sides of the ball. And I understand when people are like, oh, you can never have an elite defense with this kind of tempo, with this kind of this, that, and the other. They beat Alabama. And this idea that like Georgia is the end-all be-all roadblock to Tennessee ever winning a title or ever seriously contending is not true, because there is a path where like they don't have to beat Georgia to win a title. They don't have to get through. Tennessee got through just about everyone last year. Like, you put them up against just about anyone.
But if you look at, while Alabama was their dynasty, almost every single team, it was what was like 12 or 13 straight years that won the national championship had to beat Alabama at one point, or it was Alabama. You know, I think Florida State was the only team for like a decade that either wasn't Alabama or didn't have to go through Alabama to win the national championship. And if Georgia does become that, then Tennessee obviously is going to have to go through them. But I think you're misunderstanding the argument. It's not that they should spend their recruiting capital only on in the trenches or whatever, and they shouldn't try to get 5-star wide receivers.
Yeah, that's
obviously you should get the best player you can get at every single position. Mm-hmm. Mike Matthews is a 5-star that everybody wanted, so obviously you're going to try to get him. I think the point is, Georgia's not going to be worried about Tennessee until they start landing the elite offensive linemen and defensive linemen consistently. Because, like, if you just look at what Georgia is under Kirby Smart compared to what they were under Mark Richt, like, there's this idea that they underachieved under Mark Richt, and maybe they're to a small level they did underachieve, but for the most part, Mark Richt was signing, you know, at best like the 4th or 5th ranked class in the country. There was some, but more likely it was like the 7th or 8th ranked class in the country, and that tended to be the 4th or 5th ranked class in the SEC. And then Georgia was like the 3rd or 4th best team in the SEC lots of times. It's kind of how it worked out. And you saw the skill players like the Todd Gurleys and the AJ Greens and Matthew Stafford and Noshawn Marino. How do you not win a championship with these guys? It's like Georgia didn't have a first round pick offensive lineman, from it was George Foster, I think, in 2003 until Isaiah Wynn in like 2018. Mark Richt essentially didn't recruit one 5-star or one first-round pick offensive lineman the entire time he was at Georgia, and it's like that's a red flag right there because the game is built in the trenches. So I think that's what you look at Josh Heupel. I mean, and he would be so lucky. Let's not act like he's Mark Richt or anything. That's 15 years of consistency. I think Tennessee fans would probably take that based on where they've been the last decade plus. But I think when you look at Josh Heupel, and I know I've thrown out the Dan Mullen comparisons. It's not that it's just they shouldn't be celebrating this. They shouldn't be excited. It's just until they start building up in the trenches, I don't think they're a realistic. And they start stacking classes on top of the other, because that's the other thing that I took exception with. I think you said Steve Wiltfong said that Tennessee's on the cusp of winning a national title. And I don't see that at all. Like, they're on the cusp of competing for national titles, I feel like. If this is on their way to doing it. Like, where are they, like 4th or 5th right now in the class rankings? Like, if they sign a top 5 class, like, that's the start of it. And then they got to stack another top 5 class on next year. And they're Tennessee. There's no reason they can't do that. I feel like the way you've talked about them at times is like they're this small market club, like, well, we got to temper expectations. It's like, once it gets going, the ceiling is as high as anybody. They're a reason they're a sleeping giant.
Well, hold on. I have said the ceiling is there are certain programs that they cannot realistically catch anytime soon. And that's not, like, some of it's just geography. Like, Tennessee, what I've said is that they can beat Clemson. The Tennessee being back, the biggest loser in Tennessee being back is Clemson. And you're already seeing on the recruiting trail. Like, Tennessee has landed some major, like Mike Matthews is a major haymaker, because that really probably came down to Clemson and Tennessee. And you look at William Satterwhite, that came down to Clemson and Tennessee. And he ends up at Tennessee. And I think you're going to see that more and more, is Tennessee and Clemson going to the wire for the same kind of kids now. And because East Tennessee is really close to Virginia, really close to North Carolina, really close to South Carolina, I mean, they're going to cross paths a lot. And I think that is a big part of Clemson maybe being in a little bit of trouble.
But if they were in the ACC, then yeah, they don't have to actually play Clemson though. So Clemson is still getting the elite talent in their conference. Tennessee might be just as good. And this 12-team playoff is really going to tell us, because me and my brother were talking about the other day, kind of comparing the Oklahoma Rose Bowl and the Ohio State Peach Bowl, kind of where Georgia's program was at that time. Like, we always thought we were like as good as Oklahoma, but we didn't actually know, because it's like, I feel like if we were in the Big 12, we could be that good, right? Like, you don't really know. This 12-team playoff, you could actually see maybe the 5th best team in the SEC is as good as the best team in the ACC some years, but that was the biggest challenge always, is like, maybe you're the 3rd or 4th best team in the SEC and the 3rd or 4th best team in the country, and those more talented teams in the SEC are keeping you out historically. So that could be one thing that's going in Tennessee's favor with this new format, because it was as good as you can be in the SEC when you had Alabama and now Georgia at the top. It doesn't necessarily matter how good you are, because you have to get past one of them to even try to play Michigan or Ohio State or Clemson to see what you're made of.
Yeah, and to bring it back to the SEC recruiting, like, they're not going to recruit better than Ohio State right now. They're not going to recruit better than Alabama. They're not going to recruit better than Georgia. No one's going to recruit better than Georgia anytime soon. And then you look at Florida. The proximity of Florida, they walk into 5-star. There are more, like, geography alone will always give Florida a better advantage to landing better classes than Tennessee. Like, there is a reason that like, we talk about it all the time. Florida just can't get out of their own way, but Florida is in a better spot, especially in recruiting, than Tennessee, and always will be. They should be better, but some years Tennessee should beat Florida, some years they should not. But most often, I would say Florida should win those battles. And I would also say LSU, and where they are and the amount of in-state talent in the state of Louisiana, they should have better classes. It just so happens 4 of those schools are in the SEC along with Tennessee. I'm saying the ceiling, or the most realistic thing, is somewhere in Texas now, is you're going to have to be okay with the 5 to 7 range if you're a Tennessee fan when they go to 16 in the conference. And it sounds worse in theory, but it's like, that's probably the best roster in the ACC. Like, Tennessee probably has the best roster in the ACC. It has the best roster in the Big 12. But, like, it's just, the SEC, and I'm saying post Texas in the Big 12, but what I'm saying is that like it's just there's only so high you can go, and you have to find your niche. And right now, Tennessee has found their niche that is scoring a lot, that is a lot of fun, that is selling out tickets, that has the fan base excited, that has this offense. They are must-see TV. Guess what? America likes watching them. The two biggest games, Tennessee, Georgia, and Tennessee, Alabama. Like, it's really fun watching
America's
Tennessee play.
team.
They
Tennessee
are
Volunteers.
Many forget America's team. And stuff like, I don't know why this is necessary. And I want to put this quote up. And this was something that started the whole thing. Graham said, many of you, and again, love Graham. I'm not picking on Graham. Many of you won't like this take, but I will start paying attention to Tennessee's recruiting when they begin landing elite front seven and OL prospects. They're doing a great job, but Heupel's system gets most anyone open. Want to compete for titles? Beef up the lines. Someone else.
There it is.
Which, again, two things can be true. They can get people open, and they could also be, hey, this is our bread and butter right now. This is what's getting in guys in the league. This is what's bringing, like, if they're kind of what you were saying, if a 5-star wants to come here, we are going to bring in 5-star quarterbacks and 5-star receivers, because that is, they see this offense and they see the production. They see guys go in the NFL. Guess what? That is where guys are going to go. And then you hope that eventually turns into 5-star offensive line. Do you know what the hardest position to win?
Thing.
Do you know what the hardest position in this sport to recruit is? Talk to any behind-the-scenes recruiter. Guess what? There aren't many 5-star tackles. There aren't many premier guys in the trenches on both sides to bring in. It's damn hard to do this. Georgia makes it look easy. Alabama traditionally makes it look easy. There are not that many guys to go around. And if Heupel thinks that he can get around with this scheme, and hey, they coach guys up, like Darnell Wright was a 5-star coming in. Guess where he got significantly better? Glenn Ellerbe. Glenn Ellerbe is not the recruiter that Jeremy Pruitt was, but guess what? He got significantly more out of Darnell Wright when he was in this system. So if he's banking on 4-stars being able to hold up and be able to do the job, and then their resources being 5-stars, the playmakers at tight end, receiver, running back, quarterback, and that being enough, and if you're weak at the offensive line and you just hope you get lucky there, or in the portal, because that's another part of it. Could they get a 4 or 5-star in the portal who wants to come in for 1 year and play in this team? That's another part of it. They are swinging hard on the defensive line to win in the trenches. And it's not like they're not going after. Devin Hobbs was Georgia wanted Devin Hobbs. Like, they are in those battles. They are trying to, we are entering year 3.
Everyone's
and people
trying.
are attacking. Well, no, people are attacking. They were number 1 in the first CFP rankings this past year. This team just barely avoided a postseason ban. They have been under a NCAA investigation for years. That's been used against them.
Where are we going here?
What I am saying is they are ahead of schedule. So Georgia fans to attack where Tennessee is, we're not. What are we worried about? This just wrapped up year 2. Were we doing this to Kirby after year 2? What were we like? This is insane to me that we're having these conversations. And then the quote, and someone posted, another podcaster posted this below it. They won't ever understand that. Also, if you run that style of offense, you'll never have a top 10 defense. It's borderline impossible. It doesn't matter who is on that side of the ball. Here's the problem. We don't know. And everyone has this final idea on what's going to happen with Tennessee and where this Heupel era is going. All we know right now is Heupel has top 10 offense after top 10 offense. He is able to score on anyone. What we don't know.
And that's my point. So if you just look at them, what Tennessee has been and what they were in 2022, like, yes, an offense can get better. They can execute a little bit better, but they scored 45 points a game. Like, how much better is the offense going to be? You watched Tennessee play last year. Did you think they need better wide receivers?
Well, this was the point
They need a better quarterback. Like, that's what they were already good at, and that's what always works in their system. So the only thing they need to get better at, I mean, you looked at the Georgia game. They gave up 8 sacks in that game. Like, that's what you need to get better at as on the offensive line. In a defensive line, what were they, 50-something scoring defense in the country last year?
But they were top 30 in rush defense. Like, you couldn't run on Tennessee. That was something that they were pretty good at.
But the defense was not very good. So until they, the defense is better and you start stacking more, just consistent defensive classes, which I feel like Tennessee is recruiting better. So they're on their way to competing.
Can we let Hypo get through year 3 before we're like, what?
Trust me, Kirby got no slack, so I can't cut
Well, he doesn't
Heupel
deserve
any
slack. He's in the best. This is the best high school football state now in the country. Like, Georgia was always the sleeping giant. Like, he deserves credit for tapping in, but It's different. Georgia should be recruiting better and should be better than Tennessee. It's a better situation.
Yeah, but Georgia, I'm just saying he was unfairly judged after like year 3 or 4. But Heupel is definitely moving in the right direction. But just to say just the blanket statement on the cusp of winning a national title, I just don't think they're quite there yet. Because
what
I
I'm
feel
saying
like
is,
this
can Georgia fans leave us alone? Can they let us have joy? Like, if your response is like, I'll worry about Tennessee when they get a 5-star offensive lineman, can we, and then this idea that this offense can't win a title. What, we don't know that. Nebraska won multiple titles running the option. Like, we have no idea what can win titles anymore. Like, the idea
they also
that,
had some elite defensive players.
But what I am saying is, like, can the games just happen? Can we just see on the field? Can I see what Nico looks like? Can I see what 5-star receivers and a 5-star quarterback in Josh Heupel's system looks like? Can I see that? Do we have to make these like just talking down to what Tennessee's ceiling is at this point based on what we've seen to this point, which is only positives here? Can we just see the games? Can we just take some time? But the biggest thing about this is we're excited because guess what's back? Tennessee and Georgia beef. And we have not had this in a long time where now it's going to be the defense. And I'm already seeing it play out where the offensive, Georgia fans are going to roll their eyes at Tennessee's offense year over year. Where they're like, yeah, you can drop 60 on South Carolina and Kentucky again. Bring it up. Like, that's a cute offense that you win 10 games with.
They didn't drop 60 on South Carolina last year.
I mean, the last time they were in Knoxville. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you this year, what Tennessee is going to do to South Carolina at home early in the year is going to be, it's just going to be illegal.
But I think I cut off your point. But Georgia fans will be right to feel that way. Like, yeah, you guys dropping 60 on Missouri, like that's cool. If you're scoring less than 20 against Georgia, you're not going to beat them. So.
Which is fair, but we also don't know because guess what? Alabama was an extremely talented team last year. They lost 2 games.
Bama was flawed last year, though.
But the defense wasn't. The defense was still a top 10 defense. They had talent everywhere.
I don't think they were top 10, maybe top 20, though. I mean, LSU beat Alabama. Like, LSU was
a top 10 team.
I don't think so.
Tennessee
I think they were like 15th or 16th.
LSU.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, I feel like Tennessee fans feel like we beat Alabama, we got to the mountaintop, and
no, it's awesome. It's nice.
From 2010 to 2020, like that was the mountaintop.
Georgia is just the biggest. Like, no Tennessee fan has ever once said that we're close to Georgia. That's the other part of it. It's like everyone knows. Everyone knows.
No, that's definitely. I'm on Twitter. I see these crazy Tennessee fans.
I picked Georgia to beat Tennessee on this podcast. You were here.
No, I'm not saying you're not logical, but there's plenty of Tennessee fans that think they're gonna destroy Georgia next year. Like they're definitely
they're not destroying
there.
Georgia. But do I think it could be close in the fourth quarter? Kind of like Tennessee,
in Knoxville,
Alabama?
You gotta like your chances as good of it. I'm not poo-pooing it as hard as Graham Coffee is, but I shared the sentiment of Graham Coffee, but like you said, like taking it to Twitter unprovoked after a big time 5-star commit.
That's what I'm saying.
Feels like hater stuff for sure. But I feel
our back-to-back champions. Why are you hating on Tennessee just getting any kind of? You know what's nice? Let us live. Let us have 5-star receivers and 5-star quarterbacks and just enjoy our lives.
I will not, like, when I see a Tennessee fan, talking too much, I can't bite my tongue and I got to jump in there. But no, I'm never starting any sort of conversation about Tennessee. Like, I'm not thinking about Tennessee until they start talking. I gotta set them straight.
I mean, let's just see what happens game 3 with Heupel, Kirby. Let's just see. I don't know
for sure. And in Joe Milton, without a doubt, it's gonna be interesting. I feel like you weren't even sold on Joe Milton. Now we got Jordan Rodgers hyping up Joe Milton. I'm
absolutely still not sold on Joe Milton.
Yeah, so it should be interesting.
Yeah, not in the least bit. Well, there you go, folks. Tennessee, Georgia, it's back.